Don Kane is the author of Spies, Espionage and Explosions. Why a novel and not a history book?
Well, I got caught up with, when I was building it, where I was bumping into historians, and basically the historians were saying things like to me, well, you're not a historian, you haven't written any history papers, so what right do you have to do this? But yet, when I was developing it, I realized, well, I've been in the archives from all over the world, Germany, France and Ireland and Austria and Washington and up in Canada, and so I had all these files. But then again, being a first writer, maybe I'm insecure, so I sat there and said, well, let's make this a historical novel, but yet let's build it with true historical facts. The novel itself, it has about 50% of the material in it is actually files from the archives. Like, for instance, when I was talking about the Parliament building fire, the Prime Minister of the country assigned one of his generals to go out into the city and figure out, like, why did this happen? Why did we have the fire? And when you actually look in the book, it's actually an archival file that in the back of the book, you can actually look at the records as to where I can go in the archives as a reader and find this file. And the file is actually telling them who did it, when they moved into the city, where they got the munitions from, how they moved into the Parliament buildings, where they put the stuff, when they blew it up, how they exited the city, and it's even got Catholic priests helping them through this whole process. And what's really interesting about the archival files is the Catholic priest names are whited out, so you don't actually get to get the names of the priests. But then again, when you're talking about spy networks in the world, the spy networks for the Pope with every priest around the world, they've got a pretty sophisticated Secret Service system.
So when the anniversary the Halifax explosion rolls around every December 6th. Given all the research you've done on the explosion, given the fact that you've written an historical novel about it, what do you think about it?
Well, I believe it's true, but then I believe it's true because my father told me, and you believe your father, but yet when you actually say you believe your father, my father was actually with the Secret Service in the Canadian government. Throughout his whole life, he was carrying a Secret Service card, and during the military of the Second World War, he was dropped behind enemy lines and in the Dutch area, and was helping out with the resistance people there. Actually got a grenade thrown at him when he was coming back through lines, and they actually saved him, brought him back. So with him starting me out to say it isn't an explosion, and me finding Kane files being in Halifax headquarters at District 6, and then finding all these other files which are cross-referencing themselves, it began into making me realize that, God, there's way more to this truth than what you would really believe. But that's the difference between history books in the past and history books now, because I took so long in researching this that I'm now up to the state where I had access to internet. So once you get access to the internet, then you could be able to get files you could never get as an historian. You could wander the world. Like, I was into Pinkerton files that didn't get released until later on in my research phase. And Pinkerton files Pinkerton got sold to a Northern European country, but they left all the files in the United States, and it took 2 or 3 years for them to be released. Pinkerton was actually the Secret Service for the World War I United States activities. And then the other truth of the matter was you had the British agent working out of Washington, the Spring Rice agent. He spent 3/4 of his time during the First World War in Newfoundland, because that's where the German submarines were getting the supply of their gasolines to keep their submarines active on the east coast of Canada and United States. And during the First World War, the Germans were blowing up boats off the coast of Halifax and off the coast of New York. Now, why haven't we heard about this before? I mean, what government, First World War, Second World War, or now, wants to tell its people that there's really a danger in the society around you? They wanted to keep everything quiet because basically what it amounts to is they did not want a society that was fearful of going out of their own houses. But you talked about earlier an interesting point about the number of Germans, being in North America and the United States, and there was a large population of Germans in Canada at that time. A lot of those people, when they came over from Europe, became Americans and became Canadians. So both the Americans and the Canadian governments were very cautious as to, like, these are our people, so we can't really say they're all enemies because really they're Canadians. But then there were the people who were here who, when the Kaiser wanted help, you got to realize that those people, because they came in the 1860s and they had fought in battles over in Austria and Germany, that they were supportive of their own land. So, you do get into this supportive feeling of, like, I do want to help my fatherland, but what it amounts to is my children are all from this area and they're all Canadian, or they're all, U.S. Thank God in society it's come together now that we're all friends, and the German population around the world is an amazing leader and creator of products and partners in the United States and in Canada.